This is All India Radio. In the program Samvaad, now we bring a discussion on banning of 59 mobile applications and cyber security issues. The participants are Pavan Duggal, cyber expert, and AIR special correspondent Mattu JP Singh.
Government has banned 59 mobile apps prejudicial to its sovereignty and integrity of India. These apps were banned in view of information available. They were engaged in activities which are prejudicial to defense of the country and security of state and public order. Pavanji, if we see, there have always been concerns pertaining to privacy regarding these apps, and now they pose a larger concern.
These apps are gateways to information, and more significantly, given the careless manner with which people go ahead and download these apps, the need for recognizing the apps as potential breaches of cybersecurity becomes paramount necessity. That's the reason why the government has specifically gone ahead and banned these 59 Chinese apps. Now, for the first time in the history of independent India, that so much quantum of apps which have got links to a particular country have been blocked. Now, this blocking order has been given under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act because, seen holistically, the majority of these 59 apps, though free, have been collecting humongous volumes of information of Indian users. Now, there are so many crores of Indian users which are using these apps. Most of the users don't even apply their mind when they actually give permissions to these apps. And when you consider and compare these Chinese apps in comparison with other international apps, you will quickly realize that the Chinese apps collect far more information about you as compared to other apps. So even the permissions that are sought are far more. In this context, a lot of data of Indians is getting collected by these Chinese apps. It's being transmitted back to China so that the same can potentially be appropriately analyzed using big data or artificial intelligence methodologies. So ultimately, this kind of data is likely to throw up various facets which potentially impact the sovereignty, security, integrity of India. It is in this context that the government has chosen to ban these apps. Now, this is a right step in the right direction and represents the first move towards strengthening the cyber security of the Indian coast. Now, there are going to be some pushbacks. Already we find that one of the players have said that they are in talks with the government. They have not violated any such terms. Well, it will be onus on the said service provider to show how they have complied with the Indian applicable cyber law, being the Information Technology Act 2000, and also rules and regulations made thereunder, because the Indian cyber law considers all these app service providers as intermediary, and Section 79 of the IT Act mandates these intermediaries to exercise due diligence while they discharge their obligations under the law. Various parameters of due diligence have been defined by the central government, the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines Rules 2011 and the Information Technology Reasonable Security Practices and Procedures and Sensitive Personal Data or Information Rules 2011. So the next time any app company wants to challenge or appeal against this banking blocking order, they would be required to show how they have complied with the law and how such an order is not in accordance with the principle established by law.
As you just mentioned that over the last few years, India has emerged as a leading innovator when it comes to technological advancements and a primary market in digital space. So do you see that here we have a huge consumer potential who would not be aware of such threat to their data as you just mentioned right now? And if we speak of a largely young population, that they are giving too much of information without knowing that it could be harmful to their own interests.
India as a nation historically never had a great sense of data protection. This is so because we've all evolved sociologically from the joint family system, and consequently sharing is a de facto and default option as far as Indians are concerned. No wonder most of the Indians don't even think twice before they download any app. 99% of the Indians do not read the terms and conditions and privacy policy of the app in order to understand as to how the app is going to deal, handle or process your data, including your personal information. Further, somehow people have this intrinsic faith that they are just a common lot, they're nobody special, and hence their data is not going to be of any value to any other stakeholder. Little do they realize that today we have already woken into the digital economy ecosystem. Data is the only oil that's fueling this data economy. And ultimately, various Chinese apps are providing you so much of cutting-edge services, platforms, free of cost to you. The question that you have to ask yourself, why are you being given so much of these facilities free? Well, the answer is very clear. you have been given all these facilities because you are the product. And you are generating data, which data is what the companies providing you these apps are interested in. No wonder, including the companies who have been running the banned or the blocked Chinese apps, have been making crores of rupees by monetizing data of various users on their platforms. Ultimately, we now need to create far more awareness about cybersecurity. The common perception in the young minds today is that cybersecurity is a governmental responsibility and that we should not do anything about it. I think nothing can be farther than the truth on this. The fact is that yes, the government is concerned and is working on cybersecurity, but in our country, the critical information infrastructure is jointly owned both by the government as also by the private sector. Plus, we have to realize that as users and as consumers, we are part of a big chain of cybersecurity in this digital ecosystem. And the chain is going to be as strong or as the weakest link. And it's our responsibility not to become the weakest link in the cyber security chain per se. So there's a need for massive capacity building. There's also need in India to have a detailed cyber security law which can actually detail the rights, duties and responsibilities of various stakeholders in the context of protection and preservation of cyber security. Further, now with these kinds of cyber attacks getting more and more imminent, the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, being the Indian nodal agency on cybersecurity, has warned of a big cyber attack based on phishing. I think in these circumstances, the government should come up with standard operating procedures or SOPs which must be intimated to all stakeholders, which should clearly stipulate what are each stakeholder expected to do in the event such kind of cyber attack takes place. So a lot of work needs to be done.
As you just mentioned about monetizing of data and how, the mindset has to be framed in such a manner that people realize that this information which they are giving for free is not really free. And if we take it further and talk about these banned apps which include TikTok, Hello, WeChat, if we talk about the mud and mortar, how will they collect data? Supposing, I say I'm just giving my name and address, how does it matter? And it is innocuous to a person who is not digitally savvy and is just using this as a source of entertainment. So what exactly, if we put it out in detail, how is this information getting vented or getting translated into further information for the companies?
Well, when I download a Chinese app, or for that matter, any app, most of the times I find that I don't read the terms and conditions or privacy policy. When I say I, means the common person. Now, when you download the app, at the time of installation, it's going to ask from you a number of permissions. Most of the time, we are so much in a hurry to start using the app that we don't even read what is the permissions that we are giving. We must be able to read studiously and come to an intelligent conclusion as to whether the said permission that's being sought, is it central to the main functioning or activity of the app or not? If it is not the main functioning element, then such permissions need not be granted. But because people routinely grant all these permissions, we find that the majority of these Chinese apps seek permission and get permission from you for purposes of accessing your photographs, your contacts, your gallery, so much so your mic per se. In addition, they also capture a lot of information pertaining to your device. So once you can start collecting all this information, the company has already mapped you as a data entity. Then gets further corroborated by your constantly updating and uploading information, whether in the form of videos or audio or message or text on these platforms. Further, information that you're generating becomes the basis for the platform to go to advertisement companies and advertisers saying, look, we have this huge potential market. Why don't we show your advertisements to this potential market? So the company tends to monetize your data by misusing the same and earning millions of dollars every year. Therefore, I believe we should not have this impression that, look, I'm only giving my name or I'm not just giving a small permission. There's a torch application. Why should the torch application ask access to your contacts or your camera? I mean, if you start asking these fundamental questions, to a large extent, you'll become more significantly aware about the importance to your day-to-day life. Because we have had instances where Chinese CCTV cameras, which have been installed in particular locations, have been found to be sending the output of CCTV cameras back locations in China. So imagine your constant movements being monitored. That could actually have an immense impact upon not just your cybersecurity as an individual, but also upon the enjoyment of your rights of privacy and data protection.
Pavanji, some of these apps are quite popular, and one drawback which we have seen that the unofficial versions of such apps also surface. What is your take on this?
Today is a world of cracking and dark versions. So you have the official version, which gets released on the App Store, And there are a lot of cyber criminals and cyber security breachers who want to download it, make changes and insert therein malicious codes, and then release the same as dark versions or malicious versions of the same. Advertise them as much and as like as the original version. With the result, if you are an innocent, innocuous user who's not much aware of these nuances, you could land up downloading the malicious app or the dark version of the app, and then you quickly realize that without your knowing, all your data, apart from flowing to the said company, is also flowing in the hands of cyber criminals. And then you become a victim of potential cyber criminal activity or cyber security breaches. Because at the end of the day, our digital present and our digital future is dependent on our data. If we are not going to be cautiously careful on how our data is going to be handled by service providers or accessed by other stakeholders, our privacy will be gone forever.
If we look ahead now, what is the way forward? Will we have substitutes in their place? And then what will be the implications? In this regard, Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar today said that banning of these apps will give fillip to Indian startups and they will come up with better versions. He said this is a right step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat.
India as a nation for a long time has never given the kind of focus to app-based economy. Consequently, we did not come up with enabling financial support for these app companies. We also did not learn from the experiences of states like California, which came up with distinctive norms of behavior and codes of conduct for app developers and app companies. But I think the government of India still has a golden opportunity. The government has the power under Section 87 of the Indian Information Technology Act 2000 to specifically stipulate various parameters of due diligence that these app companies need to be complying with while they are creating these new indigenous apps. Because there was a policy economic vacuum on the app economy in India, this vacuum was sought to be filled up by the Chinese apps. Now, with a majority of these popular Chinese apps being currently blocked, this vacuum has once again re-emerged. And what better opportunity for Indian indigenous app companies or developers to create new innovative apps and serve the Indian market than the present one. I completely agree with the Honorable Minister's statement that this kind of banning ultimately give a massive fillip to the growth of the indigenous industry on app making and could actually start yet another revenue generation source for a large number of digital stakeholders in India.
In the broader perspective, if we talk about the scenario in other countries, how are the cyber laws being framed? What are the policies being framed to prevent breaches so that privacy of an individual is not compromised?
Most of the countries across the world have chosen to make the UNCITRAL model law on electronic commerce as the basis for them coming up with the national cyber laws. So these cyber laws have invariably set the tone in terms of granting legality to the electronic format, promoting the cause of electronic governance, and also providing for electronic authentication. But in the context of cyber security, most of the traditional cyber laws have not done much. That's the reason countries were initially waiting for some international cyber law to take place, which it did not. There is also no international cyber security law in place. So from 2015 onwards, we have been seeing a new trend where different countries have started coming up with their own distinctive national cyber security laws. These are countries including China, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, Macau, and even Australia. Now, these countries have come up with detailed legal frameworks on cybersecurity, which go ahead and define the rights, duties, and responsibilities of various stakeholders in the direction of protection and preservation of cybersecurity. Once you are able to go ahead and protect cybersecurity, you will automatically walk in the direction of enabling privacy protection as also protection of data. So if countries start working increasingly in the direction of strengthening their national laws on cybersecurity, that could be a great starting point. Incidentally, India has also come up with a Personal Data Protection Bill 2019, which was tabled before the Indian Parliament in December 2019. Right now, the said bill is pending consideration of the Joint Parliamentary Committee of the Indian Parliament. So I think there's a lot of scope for a lot of action by states, nation states to do in terms of coming up with enabling legal frameworks for protecting privacy, data protection, and cybersecurity.
Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on banning of 59 mobile applications and cyber security issues. The participants were Pavan Duggal, cyber expert, and AIR special correspondent Mattu JP Singh. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.